phone and other people. Hi. Hello, my name is Cassandra Rich, and I will be presenting the basic care of a Venus flytrap with this, if you can see it. Probably not. So caring for a Venus flytrap is a lot easier than you think it is. You just have to know what they like. They're not necessarily native to California, so they like different things. They're actually native to South Carolina. They're not tropical like a lot of people think. So there's 3 main care points that you have to look at: their living conditions, their food, and their handling. They're just a little bit fragile, but not as fragile as you think they are. It's a presentation. And there's a picture. Yeah. Their environment. Venus flytraps live in bog-like environments, so they tend to be in places that are very humid and have low nutrients and lots of soil that isn't even soil sometimes. It's just moss. It just grows on top of things. And they get lots of sun in these environments, gardenreport.com says. Whilst Venus flytraps attain their nutritional needs from preying on insects, they still do need to photosynthesize like any other plants. So they do need a lot of sun. A lot of times they need about 6 hours a day for any kind of sun. I use a grow light because I grow a Venus flytrap in my room. Its name's Hydra. It's very nice. Another point for their environment is that they need a lot of moisture. A terrarium is nice, especially in some place like California where it is very dry. So using a terrarium and spritzing it with water is a great way to give it the moisture that it needs. They need nutrient-absent soil, which is very odd considering it's a plant, and most plants get their nutrients from the soil around them. But since they get their nutrients from the food that they eat, since they prey upon insects, they don't really need any nutrients in their soil. It can in fact make them sick sometimes because they get too much nutrients that they don't need. So a lot of times they need a soil that retains moisture. I have my plant in peat moss, and you make the peat moss very wet and damp, and it sits in there, and you'll spritz it, and you barely even have to water it. It's very interesting. And they like it especially if you have a little bit of water on the bottom that they can go reach their little tendrils towards. And their food. Venus flytraps eat bugs, obviously. Favorite is a fly. I tend to feed my Venus flytrap any fly that annoys me. So they're very nice, and they don't snap on your fingers or anything like that. Another option to give them food would be mealworms, which a lot of reptiles eat mealworms. You can find them at a PetSmart, Petco. Sometimes they're dried, but it's preferred that you give them living food because they can end up getting sick from something that's been dead for too long. One common myth for the Venus flytrap is that it can eat meat and processed foods, but they cannot eat any proteins like beef or such, especially processed. It'll make them sick, such as this photo. You can't really see it, but it's got a very black trap that you would have to cut off and prune. One of the most prevalent myths is that Venus flytraps can eat human food like meat or cheese. This is a big no-no. These plants are equipped to digest processed food, said indoorvegetablegrower.com, what to feed your Venus flytrap, 5 tips and tricks in 2024. They digest their food in their trap-like mouths that shut when 3 trigger hairs are touched, and that is the way that you get them to eat their food. Most of the time I use tweezers or scissors, and I hold the fly or the bug or pincher bug, and I stick it in there, and I trigger 3 hairs, and then it'll snap on it. Now it's very important that your bug hasn't been dead for very long, because such as anything else, it will get sick from rotten meat and meat that's just been out for too long. And another important thing to think about is if your bug that you're trying to feed your plant has the ability to eat plants or eats plants normally. So if you have a pincher bug per se, you can cut off its head right when you feed it, and then you can actually give it to your plant and it will digest it. And since they digest prey live most of the time and it takes so long, you have to make sure that they are either freshly dead or that they are still alive. Kind of cruel in a way, but it's okay. It's what they eat. And like I stated before, the bugs they eat must either be alive or freshly dead because it can get them sick. Their handling. You have to be careful not to trigger their little mouths. It is so tempting to go touch them because they look like mouths and they look like they have pretty eyelashes and you want to touch them and you want to see them snap. But it takes a lot of energy for the plant to be able to do that. So you have to be careful in triggering those mouths. And especially when you're moving them, if they all close, you have to give it a really good amount of food when you replant it so that it can go ahead and regain all the energy that it used to snap it shut. And definitely make sure that when you are handling them, to keep them in a sterile environment, because just like humans and any other animal or any plant, they can get sick and they can get infections from their roots and whatever. Another care tip is that they do live in South Carolina natively. In South Carolina, in winter, it gets very, very cold. So if they're looking tired or droopy, you can stick them in a hibernation state in your fridge, where you take the plant out of its soil and you stick it in a baggie and you spritz it with some water and you keep it in your fridge, and then it comes out springtime and as happy as can be. These things are very, very easy to take care of. Some think that they're really hard to take care of because of how delicate they can be sometimes, but truly if you have the right environment for them to grow in, they can thrive and they can eat all the bugs that annoy you in the world. And in conclusion, caring for your Venus flytrap can be easy once you get to know its needs. And they're very great companions. And that is my speech. Thank you very much for listening. And again, my name was Cassandra Rich, and that's it.